Hey there, I'm Vanessa Konecki, and this is Stop Shitting All Over Yourself, a show to remind you that you do know what you're doing and you are enough exactly as you are. Each episode, I connect with an incredible human being who has walked the path that you're on. It's the path that leaves other people's expectations for who you're supposed to be and the decisions that you're supposed to make by the wayside, and replaces those ideas with a blueprint for your life that you design. These are stories that will inspire you, and the tactics that they apply will help you to lay the bricks on the road to a happier and more joyful you. As always, thank you so much for listening. And if you're on YouTube, drop a like or subscribe to get all the feel good content from Vanessa TV. But now, let's listen in as I have a conversation with Dorothy Mashburn, a salary negotiation expert and someone who is a consistent inspiration to me in terms of how she views and approaches money. One of the biggest challenges that so many of us face is asking for what we're worth, asking for the raise, making that argument to say, this is what I want to make. The things that hold us back aren't just our own anxieties, but there are years of systemic ideologies piled on top of employees to keep them in a position where they ask for less, which ultimately has the biggest impact on the bottom line for the company. For a lot of corporations, their salary and fringe line takes up the most of their budget. So if they can keep your costs low, then it works out better for them. But how does that help us as employees in living our most authentic and joyful lives? While the bottom line is getting bigger, are we making enough money to at minimum compensate for the cost of living or at best provide for a healthy, joyful, and fulfilling life? There is a lot to unpack in this conversation, and I know that you're going to be as mesmerized as I am by her brilliant approach. So let's listen in. And you'll be asking for a raise before you know it.
Investing in yourself is not selfish. A lot of people, like they dream about big goals, they think about big goals, but then when it comes to like, investing in yourself, they hesitate. They're like, this might be like I'm spending too much money. It's like if
Well,
you're hiring
let's
a
dive in
coach.
on that now because I'd like to actually dive into that a little bit, starting with that, in that why do you think it is that people, because like I had that same philosophy for so many years where it's like somebody would tell me to hire a coach and like I would spend money on food, I'd spend money on rent, I'd spend money, you know what, I'd even spend money on clothes before I would spend money on a coach to train me to. And that was, I mean, in retrospect, I can see how that hindered my growth. But why do you think I did that? Like, where do you think that? I mean, not that I'm asking you to be my therapist, but generally
Yeah.
speaking, like, where does that come from?
Part of it, I believe, is social programming, right? We are always, especially as women, asked to women or girls as we are growing up in a very patriarchal society, told to help others, share with others, groom or nurture others. But the self always takes a back seat.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like whether it's a physical trainer, hiring somebody, it's like, those $200 a month or $300 a month, whatever the number is, or 500 becomes like, oh, I'm going to spend on myself and my family may not get X, Y, and Z, or my kids don't get X, Y, and Z. And it becomes this narrative inside our heads where we're saying it's selfish to spend that much money on myself. And sometimes it's not as conscious. It's like quick, like
Yeah.
you think about the money you spend on me or on eating out every Friday, and eating out on every Friday wins, because spending the money on myself means that I'm depriving my family of that fun. So
Yeah.
I would say that's a big one. And then second, I think there is a lot of hesitation on not having the confidence that you'll put in the work, because coaching is not a magic pill. It's something like you have to put in the work. Somebody can guide you and give you take away the noise so you can really focus, but then it's also work. You have to put in the work, and not a lot of people feel that they can or have the time to do that.
I think there's also you were talking earlier about, the narrative that we have in our heads. Like, if you, like, let's say you tell me, oh, I just bought myself a massage, right? And now I'm thinking, God, you were a terrible mother. Didn't you tell me that your daughter needed cleats, right? Or something like that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's like that, even if the story isn't real, right? But the problem is, and here's what I'm curious about, right? Because like there's the side of the story that isn't real, right? Because I'm not actually saying that to you, and I never would even think that, but in your
Yeah.
mind, you may write that story that somebody is going to think that. But on the other hand, there's those of us like, so, I grew up in Pakistan, and my responsibility was to make sure that as I grew up, I did these things. And there were people who would actually say that you were not being a good sister, wife, mother, whatever, because you weren't doing these things. And there's many places in the world, and here's the thing, it's overt in some places and it's covert in others,
Mm-hmm.
but you will find it everywhere, where people will literally tell you, I cannot believe you spent money on that. So I'm curious to know, do you work with clients like when you, or do you work with people who actually have the overt stuff where people are really telling them that they're bad, and how do you navigate that space?
Yeah. Let me think about that. So a lot of it, I would say 80% is covert because, a lot of people know that it's in the surface level, that, you know, wearing the oxygen mask first before putting it on your child in the plane in case of emergency. They've heard that, right?
Yeah.
You take care of you first and then take care of your child or whoever else is depending on you. So on the very surface level, we know that it's not selfish, but then under the layers, a lot of it is covert, unconscious training. I cannot honestly think about anybody who, where it does become covert, I mean, overt is at workplaces
Yeah.
where if you are asserting, being, say, I want to be part of that project that's going to give me a big visibility, you may be seen as extra aggressive or being told that you're putting yourself first before your team, so you
Yeah.
get
Uh-huh.
shy. You get shy from saying next time, raising your hand, and you overgeneralize, and it's a bit of I guess a thought distortion where you're overgeneralizing. Last time I did raise my hand, I got a small scolding saying, hey, you're putting yourself, and so every single time afterwards you're going to say, I'm not going to speak up for myself, or I'm not going to say, I need $10,000 to go develop myself.
Let's actually jump in on that, because I think that's actually a really key thing, because we started off by talking that investing in yourself is important, right? And I think that you touched base on the fact that you have to believe that you're worthy of that investment, that it's not
Mm-hmm.
selfish. And actually the truth is it is selfish, but that's okay. Like, selfish sounds like a judgy term, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not, and it's it's selfish, it's actually selfless, in that you're
It's, yeah.
you're 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 building yourself more for others. And the reason why I'm going to bring this up in the context of the workplace is, I used to run my own business many moons ago, and a lot of my clients would trade time for money. So they'd, let's say you charge $50 an hour for them. If they needed to make more money, it was not raise my prices; it was work more hours. Where people that I've worked with in corporate America, they are same thing. Where if you're hourly, it's like work more hours, right? You never really, most people don't ask for a raise, and so, you know, sorry, my throat all of a sudden. So when I think of those of us at work, right, who are almost really like giving ourselves a voice and saying, hey, I want to make X dollars, or I want Y, right? Oh, did I lose you?
I lost you, Minessa.
Oh, yeah, no, I lost you too. I was like, wait, where did you go?
Uh,
Are you there now?
I'm here, but I can't see you.
You can't see me. I can't see you. Hold on. Let me turn on your camera. Let me just see. Ask to start video. And then I'm going to stop video and then start video. There we go.
Yep,
All
I
right.
see you now.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so what I was really actually going, we were talking about raising your hand at work, and getting scolded for that. Like, coming back to that, and being conditioned, because I think the reason why I was so excited to have you on today is that this is such a complicated topic, this idea of negotiating salary, asking for what you're worth, and really not shying away from asking for the funds that you deserve to be able to
Hmm.
live your life. And I think that so many of us, like that is at the baseline, right? So if you're not getting paid an adequate amount, then that literally cascades into every other part of your life.
Hmm.
Then I go into a meeting with my boss where I know this, right? So I know that I need an extra 50,000, or I know I need an extra 5,000, or whatever it is that I know that I need. Like I know this, that this is the dollar amount that I need for me to be able to live my best life and have everything, right? And I'm sitting in that room. I will, and I have in the past, I've obviously gone through a lot of coaching to work my way through this, but the default position is still there that when the conversation begins, I don't even feel worthy of investing my voice to myself. So when
Hmm.
they say, oh, well, what do you want? I will cut my rate down 50% before I've even opened my mouth. Right. And like, but walking in there, I had the number. I'm ready. I got the thing. And you sit down and you're just like, I don't know, I'll take whatever you give me. Thank
Yeah.
you. So can you tell me a little bit about because now you're almost shooting yourself in the foot because that's the oxygen mask, right? That's the
Yeah.
mask that's going to keep you alive and going so that your whole family can be happy. And now you can have cleats and also go get a massage. What what happens to us in that moment and what can we do in that moment to navigate that situation? I know that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
really small question I just asked, very small.
Yeah. How many hours do you have? Uh, I think the couple of things is we have learned fear to adjust ourselves to make ourselves smaller because of fear. So a lot of it, I think of fear as gravity, right? So a lot of society is based on, just like gravity keeps the planets in place, society is built so that everybody knows their place and everybody's acting in a way that helps the larger society. So, fear is that power or energy that keeps us all in our spots. And so when an individual tries to, like especially a female or who's been raised female with female conditioning, they are thinking, if I raise my voice, if I make myself bigger, I fear that I'm going to get rejected because that's what we've been trained to do, So you're literally trying to take off away from gravity, get into outer space. And so you're fighting years and years of societal conditioning and programming because that's what society was built to do. And so that's why when I believe when you're raising your voice, you're literally trying to get rid of gravity, go out into outer space, and that's a lot of counterweights that you're trying to fight against. And that's what's happening, and you're like making yourself smaller so you're not seen as a threat.
That's exactly how it feels. That is like literally how it feels because you feel like you're being pulled in the direction of what you know is right versus what you're supposed to do. And then,
Mhm.
but then there's that next level, right? So, so let's say I do find my voice in that moment and I say, this is what I want, right? And so there was actually, my wife years ago was negotiating for her salary and the number that like she's a big fan of anchoring, right? So she goes
Yeah.
in to the and I had no idea. I watched this happen and I was like, I don't understand what just happened. Like I really don't understand what just happened. She's on a call with her boss and her boss is like, what do you want for, salary? And so she gives the number and her boss starts laughing at her, like literally just laughing, like this is the most ridiculous request ever. And my wife was like completely unfazed, like totally unfazed. And I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, like I'm panicking, like what's happening? And she gets off the call. And I asked her, I was like, oh my God, that didn't go well. She goes, oh, it went perfect. And I was like, what? And she's like, listen, first things first. She's like, I said the higher number. Now, whatever number, lowball number they were going to give me, they have now been anchored at a higher number. So I'm going to get a higher number no matter what.
Yes.
Two,
Yes.
I'm not going to get that number, but I'm going to get a higher number no matter what. And so her dismissal of that rejection was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know you could just reject. Like, I'm curious to know how, like, first of all, if my wife was your client, what would you say? And
Oh,
second,
I would give her a trophy. Like, you don't need any services. You're good.
you're good. Right? I know, right? She
Yeah.
taught like it's amazing. But and so I'm curious though, how do you deal with that on the other side? Like, so now I'm your client and I'm telling you these are my problems, and you're like, yep, I'm gonna help you. You give me the language and the scripts. But my boss is not gonna go with the script that they're gonna have their own shit to say about it. And how do you deal with that resistance? Like, what are your thoughts on where that resistance comes from and how to how to navigate that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so when you're negotiating, it's more than just that one and done conversation, right? So first of all, anchoring absolutely works, So think about like if you're going to Target and you see a pair of shoes for like $35 and you're like, I don't know if I want to spend $35. I'm going to go on the sale rack and buy something for $20. So 35 in that instance is a big number for you. But when you go to say a New Balance or a Nike store, this maybe the shoes are 150 and they're discounted at $100 and you're like, wow, that's a great deal. I'm going to buy this pair of shoes at $100, right? So that's what's happening in our brain. When you're anchoring at a bigger number, anything, you don't go from 150 to say $20. You're happy with the $100. So that's what anchoring is all about. And that's what psychologically your wife did with her boss. So kudos to her. But negotiation, to my earlier point, is more than just that one conversation. So if you truly believe that you're worth $150, you're going to create what we call leverage in your negotiation by adding another factor, which could be a job in a different department or a job in a different industry or even an entrepreneurial option. So I have one client who went in saying that, hey, I've been with this company for 8+ years and I've only seen incremental 3% growth. And I've been antsy. I want to do more. I can give more, but I want to also see a pay increase. And what I've started doing on the weekends, and I really enjoy, is entrepreneurial things like, she makes beaded necklaces and they were taking off in Etsy. And it's like, I'm thinking about getting a small business loan and doing this full time because this job and the money is just not worth it. And that immediately got a reaction from her current company because they know that they valued her. And so this, what we call a BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, basically means she has an option B. And when she has an option B, then she starts getting the attention that she needed. And they, gave her a promotion, went to a senior analyst, and gave her a $50,000 raise.
That's amazing. That's freaking amazing.
So that's what, so negotiating is more than a conversation and you have a whole strategy behind it. And that's how you leverage to get to the next rung.
There's a couple things you said there. The first is fucking amazing. That just to start with that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think, the second thing is, let's talk about that dynamic going into the office where she comes in and says, I've been making these beaded necklaces and they're doing really well. And so she's having a conversation with her boss. Like initially the conversation is a power dynamic where the boss is, I have the money, I have the job, I have the power, I have everything. And you are a supplicant coming to me requesting these things. And I think that's actually one of the bigger challenges that and I don't know what to do about it, but energetically, that's what I feel happens in these conversations is that there is a presumption that you're lucky that you have a job here. And we've all been conditioned in that way that like,
yes.
and I hear people say it all the time, oh, I should just be lucky to have a job. It's like, no. And so the way that I've started to think about it, and you'll have to like help me with this because it's new thoughts for me, is more like I'm a research administrative expert, and that's one of the things I'm an expert at. And I rent my time to the company and you're not buying you don't get to control me. But I feel like that I'm lucky to have a job idea coupled with almost like this philosophy that your job is your identity. Do you feel like a lot of people go in without having, like you said, that option B, and not having that option B almost makes it feel like this is my only option. Like almost this is like all or nothing. And I will literally not be able to feed my family if I don't have this. And like that now creates like you said, that fearful conversation. I'm walking in just hoping I don't lose my job. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yep, absolutely. And that's why it's a whole strategy, right? So yeah, if you go in and you hit the nail on the head when you said power dynamic, right? So what you're doing with a option B is creating you're shifting the power dynamic to you because now they need you more than you need them. And that's why the option B has to be a realistic option that you can execute if things go south. So first,
Mm-hmm.
two things that I will say, when you ask for more money, always remember that you will not lose your job. Of course, if you come in all entitled and act unprofessional, you will. But if you simply ask for a raise or ask to be considered for a promotion, there's no reason any reasonable person is going to say you're terminated. So take that
Yeah.
fear out of your mind, right? So that's one thing. And then second is Barbara Stanny has a great book called, she works a lot about under earners. And what she talks about is people who are fearful tend to also martyr ourselves, saying that, oh, I like, I'm not in it for the money, or, I'm just happy to have a job because it fulfills me. And so why would I go anywhere else where, so these are all self-sabotaging type it's narratives in our brain, so we've got to be very cognizant about that, and if we catch ourselves, then we've got to like write things down. So again, it's a whole strategy. You have to understand yourself, and then also before you do anything else, you've got to like self-correct all of the conditioning, all of the fear before you even execute an option B, before you even go have that conversation. And but if you do have that conversation, it's a bit like in Star Wars, right? When Luke goes over and fights with Darth Vader before he's ready, and he gets his hand chopped off. So it's like, yeah, it can happen for you, but it's going to be painful, and it's going to like make you gun shy for the next one, because it's going to be, you may get like an incremental, 5%, 10%, but you also get a lot of scars because you went in unprepared. But if you go in prepared, then you are set for life. Like if you have a whole strategy that makes sense, that gets the power back in your court versus giving them the power, then you have truly set yourself up for success.
I so agree on all of it, like especially the preparation part, because I think like too often we go into these situations blind and we make assumptions about what we think is happening, and we'll often assume to our detriment, right? Going back to the martyr ourselves. I laughed when you said that because I saw myself in that, right? Like it's, oh,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 I just did like, and I've got a different relationship with money now, but like it took a long time, lots of coaching, lots of therapy, and going to what you said is, I feel like, and this is going to sound, I guess, maybe sound weird, but I guess it's kind of the way it is, right? Is that a lot of this stuff is like therapy stuff, right? Is like
Mm-hmm.
conditioning stuff, is like belief and self worth. Because if I go into a meeting or an interview where I'm feeling confident, right? And I'm confident about my skills, I'm confident about my value, I'm confident about my option B, I'm confident in general. And I'm confident that we're partners, like that I'm talking to someone who's a partner,
Yes.
then we're going to have a very different type of conversation than if I go in with, you are my boss who controls all the power. Like just the tone of voice that I use
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
different, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Um, and that's tough. So I think that one of the things that really turned me on a lot about how I found you is, I can't remember. So just so that everybody knows how I found you. So I basically got on, I saw you're on LinkedIn, and your salary negotiation, the fact that you work specifically and exclusively in knowing your worth, negotiation, these key critical areas, I fell in love with you. I was like, oh my God, you're like the greatest person on the whole planet, because so many of the people that I work with, all of my audience and listeners they have had some sort of chronic illness, or they're caregivers for people who have chronic illness. These are people who are really dexterous, intelligent, creative, but because of the nature of our life framework, we struggle with having a voice for ourselves, and so we'll take the pennies and and it's, what's funny is, like, for all the people around, including myself, I see that we're worth diamonds, but that we're willing to settle for just, oh my God, is that dust? Thank you so much for the little bit of
Yeah.
dust that you just gave me. And I think my world really started to change when I had the scripts and the confidence, and then everything else came after that. Cause like at some point I realized that what I had been doing wasn't working. So I've been trying to do things a different way for a really long time. And I'm like, it's not working. And so what I did is I took what you said just now and I just believed it. And,
Mm-hmm.
and my soul was like, you're full of shit. And I'm like, no, I believe this. Right. But like I had to pretend. And I remember the reason why I bring up the voice is because I remember going into a call where I had to play with my voice beforehand so that it didn't sound tight and like, like almost victimized, versus
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we're here talking, we're friends, we've collectively got something that we're sharing together. I noticed on your website that that's something that you help with in that. And so I wanted to touch on that because I didn't believe it. First, I had the script, right? So I was like, I don't really believe it, but I'm gonna pretend that I'm gonna I'm gonna use a script. So can you share a little bit about how you feel like having these, like, how do these scripts help people when they're like, because like somebody who right now is struggling with asking for a raise isn't gonna tomorrow suddenly be like, I'm ready to ask for a raise.
Yeah.
How do you use scripts, or how do you feel like those help your clients and people in getting what they're worth?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I want to elaborate on what you actually touched on is as an expert in your field, as a subject matter expert, you have all of the power, right? But you're going in thinking about the old fashioned sort of employer employee relationship. But think of yourself as you mentioned, as a free agent. You have services, you're going to offer them at a certain cost, and they need your services and they're going to pay you for it. So that's one thing to really start thinking about. Like if you're a world-class athlete, right? You're not going to go in saying, oh yeah, I'm just happy working 40 hours. You're going to talk about millions, right? And they're going to pay you because you're going to earn them something. So you have to reframe in your mind that whole dynamic that we've been taught or conditioned to think about. Now, to your question about how do you overnight change? So our brains, and there's neuroscience behind it. What we say to ourselves has a huge amount of impact on what we believe. So our brain doesn't necessarily can tell whether if you tell your brain, oh, you don't deserve it, you're crap, and you et cetera, your brain's going to believe that. But if you tell your brain that you're awesome, you're influential, you're charismatic, you can do anything, your brain's going to believe that. So it's really important that self-talk to ourselves. And again, the book that I would recommend for your listeners is called Chatter, and the research scientist who's written that book goes into a lot of details about self-talk and how that conditions and primes our mind to have or not have confidence. And so self-talk is really important. And there are different tricks that you can use. One easy one could be every day in your journal, write down, I'm influential and confident. And in 30 days, you'll feel more influential and confident. So these are ways to trick your brain to start being what you want your brain to be. And if you want it to be weak and not confident, you can continue what you've been telling yourself. It'll believe it. But if you want it to change, then make one small step, and it's going to make all the difference.
Amen. Thank you for that recommendation, because that is like, it's the self-talk. I agree so much. It changes everything. I just had this conversation with my sister, and she's been going through her own journey, and we were at the space where I said, okay, I'm going to challenge you, the same challenge my therapist gave me. Like, it's a classic challenge, everybody's got to do it, which is, I challenge you to flip the script for 1 week. Anytime you say I suck, say I'm amazing. Anytime you just
Yes.
like flip it for 1 week and just see what happens. And if the
Yeah.
world doesn't explode, then why not just keep going?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it makes a difference. Like, it
It
really
does.
does.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I mean, all of our cliches, right? Like flip the script, they mean something because it's
right.
worked, right? It's worked for hundreds of years, but maybe we need to hear it in a different way. Maybe some of our listeners want to think about, is there actually neuroscience? And let me tell you, there is actually
Mm-hmm.
science behind this, where, the chatter in our brain is actually can be extremely powerful if we let it, by just unleashing the power that we have by saying the good things, saying the confident things to ourselves. And we can become truly unstoppable if we let it.
My grandmother used to always say all these things, right? And so many things. And I would say, wow, this is just old fashioned village
Yeah.
wisdom. And I remember
Yeah.
poo pooing on it constantly. And I now, my grandfather as well. And now with all the neuroscience stuff that's like that you're talking about, I'm reading this stuff and I'm like, they were right all along. And because
Yeah.
sometimes I say to myself, why didn't anybody think to tell me these things? And it's like, no, you know what? They did try to tell me. I just
Yeah.
wasn't
And you were
listening.
just not ready to take it,
I
right?
wasn't
It's
ready
like
to
take it
take it.
in. Yeah.
I'm curious, were you ever in a, like, when did you spring fully forth from the womb with this confidence, or did you grow into this confidence?
I had to grow into it. There was a lot of lot of falling, a lot of. So I'm an immigrant. So I'm from a small province in the Himalayas, and when I first came to the United States about 20 years ago, I was extremely nervous. You know, there was no social support. I didn't have any sponsors and mentors. Things I looked around, and my peers were light years ahead of me as far as ability to network, ability to do small talk, ability to get sponsors to take them to their next level. And I was just this, scared, fearful person that was just trying to survive in a completely different environment with nobody here. And it took a lot of time and a lot of work on self work to say, I choose to not be that person. I choose to be somebody different. And again, it didn't happen overnight. There is no magic pill. You have to put in the work. And I have, and I continue to do so. There are times when I'm in a boardroom with long-term executives with a lot of experience, when I have to go toe to toe with them, and I have to go into the bathroom and do my affirmations and park my insecurities, and then I go in and give it all I have. So
You do
it's
that
a work
too?
in progress. I do. Do you do it too?
Yeah, I do. I go like I have a whole like go into a room and it's like, because before I go into a room with people, I have to pull on my confidence suit. It's like, all right, we
Yes.
got this. It's whatever I need to do. And it's different. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's washing my face, but whatever it is, it's like, it's reminding. But I appreciate that you said that because I think that so many people like, looking at you, you're so smart, confident, and like you're saying all this stuff about negotiation and salary. And it's like, I think it's really easy for anyone to feel like that must just be how you are, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not for me. That's not, and I think it's so important to recognize that like you got here because you climbed the mountain, you clawed your way here, you got the bumps and the scrapes and the bruises, and you got, I don't know if you got your hand chopped off, but you maybe got a cool bionic hand if that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like it was, then now you find yourself here. And so what I love is that you devote your life to this exclusively. So I'd love to, for my listeners, because this is my personal belief, everybody, this, ask for what you're worth, ask for more than what you're worth, because the company can often afford to pay you more than what you're worth. And you are the gift, you are the value. Like you don't have to prove yourself, right? So I believe this so strongly. But I also believe that we are conditioned to believe the exact opposite. So
Mhm.
Toy Smith has a small training, a short training called Business Beyond Profit, where she talks about, this was actually was the video series that transformed my entire perspective on business, life, money, everything. And I just completely switched how I was living my life. But she breaks down the psychology on the corporate side and on the industry side. So you can actually see now, like the systems, like when you talk about patriarchy and and the systems, she actually breaks down the system so you can actually see how it, oh, this is how it's working to oppress me specifically, right? This is, I can see
Mhm.
how this is happening. And it was through that I which is why I started doing the podcast the way I did, so that I could just basically get people like you into the faces of everyone who needs it so that
Yeah.
they can now play the game on the playing field, right? Because like we don't know the rules. We're going into a game that we don't know all the rules to. We know what we want, but there's a whole hidden book back there. So
Mhm.
I'd love to know, for everyone listening, if like somebody, let's say this is from someone running a business who doesn't charge enough, this is someone who wants to ask for a raise or a promotion or so on. Could you tell my listeners a little bit about how you help people, how you work with them, what you do, and how they can find you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So my website is dorothymashburn.com. And I focus on, like you said, the whole strategy on how to understand your worth and then ask for it, right? And in that work, you learn how to build leverage for yourself, which is your shifting power dynamic to yourself. You get scripts on how to use the right trigger words. So a lot of conditioning happens, male female roles, and females are supposed to act this way. If you raise your voice, you're seen as aggressive, you're seen as hysterical, all of that. But if you have universal principles of influence and persuasion, so these are things that, for example, social proof, right? doesn't matter how you were conditioned, what background you have, what gender you are, any of that doesn't matter, because it touches the emotion and conditioning of humans as we are programmed to be. So it does not matter. All of the social, you can bypass all of that to get to the core of humans, and you learn how to use those skills to really make yourself seen, known, and valued. And these are things that I want people to have, because there's no reason to live in fear. There is plenty of abundant resources. So we need to stop thinking about, there's only so much, and we have to cower and hide ourselves and not be our full potential, be at our full potential to go lead a happy life, a fulfilled life, right? So if you are somebody who wants to give yourself that gift, so learn that. And you don't have to do it with me. Like, yeah, mine is a business. Invest in yourself, right? It's not shameful. It is actually self-care for you to be able to do that. So please, think about how you are today and where you want to be, and there is help out there. So if you want to find me, I'm also on LinkedIn. I also have a podcast, Salary Negotiations Made Simple, and we talk about more than just salary there. We're also talking about mindset, confidence. We're talking about influence and persuasion, and all of the things that you need to be a happy, fulfilled human. So find me. I'm happy to help. This is my passion.
And it's so evident. I actually was so you had the teacher on the podcast just a
Yes,
few days ago.
Sarah Collins.
What I love a lot about the podcast is that, like, I think that when we talk about negotiations, salary raises, things like that, those sound like they're very specific, like, I'm going to need to do it at a specific time. Like, it's not something
Yeah.
that you do every day. But I think that one of the great things about your podcast is that you talk about and you bring guests on that they address the underlying foundational issues that give you the strength to do it when the time comes, right? It's sort of
Yeah.
like if you need to like lift 1,000 pounds, then it really helps if you've been lifting weights for the last year or two to be able to get your
Yeah.
strength up instead of just suddenly picking up the 1,000 pounds, right? This is you preparing for when that time comes. You're like, I'm already ready. I have this. And that's what I really like, is because I think it's so hard when we're in the moment to be like, oh my God, I got to prep. But if you're doing it just like tiny habits over the course of the year. So I love the podcast. Every time I get your emails, and subscribe to her email list. The emails are really, like, by the way, also, I'm just totally gushing all over you. I love how clear the email, like the email, when I get the email, I know exactly what the podcast is. I'm actually going to change my podcasting emails to mimic how you do yours, because they're so clear. So guys, follow Dorothy, download her freebies. They're great, and get on her mailing list, because she is going to help you make more money. Because here's the thing, when you stop trading time for money, now you can make more money in less time, which gives you more opportunity to live your life of joy, which means you don't have to say, oh, I got to work till 10. You can be like, oh, I'm going to clock out at noon because I will have made exactly what I need to by then. And that's, so much confidence. That's awesome. Thank you, Dorothy. I'm so grateful for what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.